before we let you go, let's get into some talking about bold. Let's get into some bold predictions here. So we're going to talk about end of season award winners and Super Bowl matchup and champion. So let's start with MVP. You already said Lamar Jackson. Are you sticking with that? Now's your chance to pivot, knowing that they've lost more bodies in Baltimore, or are you sticking with your boy for MVP pick?
You know what? I'm going to stick with him because, like I said, I think that he's still looking for that long-term extension on his contract. And the fact that he can now take over that offense, he's got his tight end locked up now. His tight end's happy. His offensive line is coming back. They were a little bit banged up in the preseason. They're starting to come back. His receivers are starting to trickle back in, getting healthy. I think you're going to see Lamar ramp up his game a little bit more this year from a passing perspective. And I think that's going to separate him from where he was in the past in regards to, he's just going to take off and run. Well, I don't think you're going to see that as much because I think you're going to see a more confident guy in the pocket, which, again, if you can get a confident Lamar Jackson in the pocket, that's a scary player back there. So, with the added pressure of having to run as much as he's going to, I think you're going to see him, really do some things that no other quarterback's been able to do. And that's be a 3-time 1,000-yard rusher. And that's going to be the first quarterback to throw. And this is my bold prediction. He's going to win MVP. He's going to be a 4,000-yard passer and a 1,000-yard rusher.
So there's clips in some big plateaus there. Extra 17th game. Who knows? People could get nuts this season.
That's it.
I'm sticking with your theory of mobile quarterbacks winning it this year, but I'm going slightly south, and I'm going to go with our good friend Kyler Murray in Arizona. Going to have a big breakout year. Pains me to say that because you've got Kyler Murray and I'm playing you this week, but I've got Kyler Murray on a different fantasy team, so I'm a little bit torn right now. So if you pick me that way, at least I'm winning probably in another league. But I think he's in line for a huge year. I think the one thing he's really been missing for a while has been a solid defense behind him since he broke into the league. So I think a lot more of those, field flips and even strip sack fumbles, short field, cheap sort of touchdowns, all of that. I think that's really going to bode well for him. I think the AJ Green signing is probably very underrated. I don't think he's going to be super fantasy relevant. As far as like a real life perspective, that's another big body who knows how to get open in the red zones. And we know what he can do with his feet there. So he's going to be putting up numbers on the ground as well. Another year more familiar with our good friend DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's going to take his game to the next level. So my pick is good old Kyler Murray for MVP in the South.
You know what? He's actually my second choice for MVP this year. I'm very high on Kyler Murray. I've got him in 3 of my leagues, and Lamar is in my other one. So, those are 2 guys that I'm very high on. Mobile quarterbacks, they're the trend, they're the it factor in the NFL, this time. But Kyler also separates himself with his absolute ability to just, throw a ball on a dime. He can, chuck it, 80, 90 yards down the field, even though he's a little diminutive in stature. But, it's a very good pick. It's a very good pick. I like Kyler.
How about Matthew Stafford and a kicker for Devontae Smith and Kyler Murray? Who says no?
All right, so on to the Matthew Stafford thing. Everybody thinking that the Rams are going to miraculously become a Super Bowl team with Matthew Stafford as a quarterback. I mean, good luck. I like Stafford as much as the next guy, but I don't know why everybody thinks that things are going to be different. Their backfield's in shambles. Their defense is still solid, but they've also lost a lot of their role players because they had to pay for Stafford and also absorb Jared Goff's giant dead cap hit. Yeah. So they honestly are in a position where I don't know. I don't see how they make, and plus in the toughest division in football too. Yeah. So I mean, people thinking Matthew Stafford's going to be the savior for the LA Rams. Sean McVay's saying, "Wow, he's amazing. I wish we had him in years past." Sean McVay to me has been a little bit exposed the last couple of years with the way that defensive coordinators have figured him out. You're looking at those Rams offenses that haven't nearly been as talented as they were in year one. And that's typical. I mean, you evolve, defensive coordinators evolve, defensive players evolve. So this is a big year for McVay. And I think if McVay and Stafford can get on the same page, then they'll be okay. But yeah, anyone spouting from the rooftops that they're going to be a Super Bowl winner, they got a long way to go.
Yeah. So you're not putting too much stock into, I think it was Peter King who said Stafford's going to throw for 6,000 yards this year.
I tend not to listen to a lot of analysts that get paid to talk about things like this, because it just makes me angry, and how they say just these outlandish things just to get people to read their story or listen to them speak. So I won't get into it.
His true opinions. Tune into his Skip Bayless rant that he recently went on the Front Office podcast.
Yeah, I know that I can't swear as much on this show as I do on my own, so we'll save that for another time.
There you go. I think it really is just a case of people getting a little bit too excited about the upgrade of Goff to Stafford. And don't get me wrong, that is a massive upgrade, but they did lose some pieces there as well too. I think they'll be in the thick of it. I think they're a playoff team, but any kind of Stafford is going to rewrite every record book known to mankind. I think we can slow down the hype train just a little bit there. It would
I agree
for me for fantasy purposes, but I'm not exactly banking on that happening. All right, rookie of the year. Who do you got? Is it the Golden Boy in Jacksonville, or are you a little squirrely?
So, this one's going to be an interesting one, because I think it all depends on when rookies actually get on the field. And, I think we've had this conversation before where we've talked about how special Trevor Lawrence actually is. And I think with a coach like Urban Meyer, who really does put a lot of emphasis on his signal caller, you will see Trevor Lawrence put up some numbers and do some things in Jacksonville. I mean, people can say what they want. Jacksonville's actually got not a bad roster, especially on the offensive side. So, there's some interesting names. And I mean, you look at last year with a lot of the receivers that broke in, and, they're putting up these massive numbers. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, to be the guy who ended up winning. I mean, he was really the guy who, or was it him or Herbert that won last year?
Herbert won it.
Herbert won it. Yeah. There you go. So again, broke the record, pretty much had the season of his life, and, that happened. So, again, I'm going to sound biased when I say this, but I think with the way he's going to be utilized in their offense, I can't see Najee Harris not winning Rookie of the Year. And the reason why is because Najee Harris won't come off the field. He's a 3-down back. Their offensive line has been upgraded more to help out in the run game. Like we mentioned before, the receiving core is stacked. If Ben can stay healthy, they're going to be able to move the ball down the field. Najee Harris can be looking at catching the ball, 65, 70 times this year. You add that in with potentially 250 to 300 carries. Like, he has the potential to put up a good chunk of yardage with some good goal line touchdowns. So, I mean, I look at how he's gonna, perform. If I had to project, I'm going out on a limb, and I'm going to say he's going to rush for 1,200 yards, probably catch for another 600, and total he's going to put up about 13 touchdowns. And that sounds like a lot, but I think with how much he's going to be utilized, it's not actually that much. So I think that Najee Harris is going to win. And I think in a surprise, surprise run, I think Justin Fields is going to finish second once he gets in with Chicago.
Wow. There you go. Well, I was going to say, so with all this hype there, if you win our bet this week, am I getting you a Najee Harris t-shirt here or what? I love the about face that you've done since we were chatting when it was the picks prediction episode where you were begging for it to be an offensive lineman, and I said it was going to be Najee Harris, and now you are all aboard, the conductor of the Najee Harris train here. I love it. I love it. So I'm going to say our good friend Trevor Lawrence is probably going to win it, but I don't like that pick, so I'm going to switch it up there. But they always give it to a friggin' quarterback, like you even saw last year. Yeah, Herbert had a decent year last year and did some nice things, but it should have been Justin Jefferson. Everyone and their grandmother knows that. He got robbed. So I'm going to say, kind of stole a little bit of my thunder there, but I'm going to say Justin Fields wins it this year. And I think Matt Nagy probably realizes that his job security is directly linked to how quickly can I get it on the field and up to speed. Because if you Chicago Bears are going anywhere with Andy Dalton under center, I've got some magic beans to sell you over here. So I think Justin Fields hops on there, and just because of the fact that, I mean, we've seen it in fantasy football, we've seen it in real life football, just the migration to mobile quarterbacks. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be one of those guys who has a brilliant, 15-year long NFL career and is going to be Andrew Luck-esque. But just like when Andrew Luck came into the league, there's a little guy named RG3 who certainly gave him a run for his money and enamored quite a few voters. And I think that's going to be the Justin Fields this year. So I'm going to say Justin Fields, but you and I both know the odds-on betting favorite is the Jacksonville Jesus down there with the long hair.
Is that what is that your new nickname for him? You're going to refer to him as Jacksonville Jesus?
Yeah, I'm gonna start referring to him as that. It's trademarked now, so people don't call me. There you go.
And may I say, for the record, I never once said that I did not like Najee Harris and I did not want him on Pittsburgh's roster. What I did say, if we go back and check the tape, was that Pittsburgh desperately needed an upgrade on offensive line, and this one was so deep, especially with first round talent, that if Christian Darrisaw was there, which he went the pick right before, that would have been the ideal pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, that being said, I'm happy with the way that it goes, and hopefully Dan Moore, the rookie left tackle that they have in there, who was picked in the third round, can step up and take over that reign as the left tackle for Pittsburgh.
There you go. I don't know where those tapes are. They might have been destroyed. So we can either
probably you're on vacation. Someone probably stole them.
Yeah, they were in a warehouse. There was a warehouse fire. So, all right, who you got for defensive player of the year?
Defensive player of the year. Again, this one's difficult because there's a lot of moving parts this offseason. I mean, you saw some big names moving around. But I think you're going to see the defensive player of the year be at a position that you're not used to seeing be the defensive player of the year.
So and not Aaron Donald is essentially what you're saying.
Not Aaron Donald, but he's on the same team as Aaron Donald.
Ooh.
I think that the defensive player of the year this year is going to be Jalen Ramsey.
Oh, okay. There we go. I would have to look up his odds, but those could be some juicy meatballs you're looking at if you put a futures bet on him.
Absolutely. And, when you look at how Jalen Ramsey operates, he's cocky, he's arrogant, but you look at him play, the guy is as all around of a corner as you're ever going to get. He's big, he's physical, he can tackle, he supports the run game, and he is glue to any receiver that he covers. So I think this year, you look at, teams are going to have to throw the ball quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have a monster like Aaron Donald in the middle, you've got a pretty decent pass rush, on that Rams exterior. Sometimes you don't want to throw at Jalen Ramsey, but you know what? You're going to see someone over for a split second, get the ball out, and that's when bad things happen. So I think that Jalen Ramsey is actually going to set a precedent for himself, set a career high with interceptions, but just with passes deflected, with the amount of targets thrown. And again, I think it's a stat you have to take into account for a lot of corners in the league. How much are they actually targeted?
Mm-hmm.
Because a guy who gets 10 interceptions, well, they might be throwing at him, 30 times a game.
How many times do they target Stephon Gilmore in a game? Not very often, right?
Exactly. So
right there.
So rarely is he ever going to lead the league in interceptions. He's done it once, but that was when, he was a young player and teams didn't really understand what he could bring to the table. So, yeah, I mean, I really like Jalen Ramsey's chances to be the defensive player of the year because of all the attention paid to the 3-time Defensive Player of the Year in Aaron Donald. So put that one on the board, an underdog pick, but I like the corner to be the Defensive Player of the Year.
There you go. Has a corner ever won Defensive Player of the Year? When was the last one? Did Woodson or Dion ever win it?
Let me fact check that right now, and I'll see.
There we go.
That was an off-the-cuff response, so that's why. That was an off-the-cuff response.
The beauty of podcasts is we just edit this out, and you sound like a genius. Well, actually, that was Charles Woodson back in 1990s.
Yeah, it probably was Charles Woodson.
Or am I just confusing that because he won the Heisman?
I think he won both. Defensive MVP. Stephon Gilmore won it. 2019.
Yeah, there you go. Didn't even happen that long ago.
Winners. Gilmore, Charles Woodson, 2009. He was a safety. Safety. Deion Sanders won it. Rod Woodson won it. Not many guys. There's literally 5 guys since 1970 that have won as a corner.
There you go. So an extra bold prediction there for you. I'm going to go with someone in the game tonight. I'm going to say Devin White, linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is going to win Defensive Player of the Year.
Very good choice.
People are going to just have voter fatigue of Aaron Donald. How many years in a row can you really give it to him? And, same thing that like LeBron and sort of MJ and all that sort of went through where, let's give it to someone else. You probably could give it to him every year, but we're going to look at someone different. And I think this year, Devin White, in that Tampa Bay defense, he flies all over the field. I think he's got a good chance at setting a single season tackle record, or at least flirting with it this year already tonight. Like he's got, I've counted at least 5 tackles there. I don't know what the actual sacks are there, but need to pull up a IDP league and check those stats out. But I think he's going to be right in the mix. Doesn't really get too many sacks or interceptions, which can sometimes hurt you in the voting. But I mean, anyone who watches football and watches the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you see him on the screen on every play. Doesn't matter if it was a sack, whether it was a run, whether it was a pass, whether it was a completely broken play. Wherever the football is, Devin White is. So I'm going to go with him and say that he wins it and narrowly edges out some of the usual suspects like a Myles Garrett or Aaron Donald or some of those other guys there.
Again, right. I really like that. Devin White is one of the best young players in football, regardless of position. So very, very good choice.
There we go. Don't understand how the Bucs keep falling ass backwards into these generational talents. There you got Wirfs, Devin White. Even looking like Antoine Winfield Jr. is going to be like an all-pro before you know it out there. And
that's what's called having a good GM and a good scouting staff in place. It's very simple. It's not difficult.
You know that feeling up in Philadelphia. Oh, God. All right. Super Bowl prediction. Who you got matching up in this year's Super Bowl, and who is your winner?
Very boring prediction. I made this last night on the show. Tampa Bay, Kansas City rematch from last year. Tampa Bay coming out on top as the first repeat winner since 2003, 2004 New England Patriots. So Tampa Bay, Kansas City, ho-hum. Tampa Bay again, champions of the world.
There you go. All right. I'm going to go off the board here. I'm going to say the Cleveland Browns going to the Super Bowl against the Green Bay Packers, and the Packers are going to be your Super Bowl champion this year.
Okay, well, at least you did that.
Documentaries about the Last Dance football version, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and all the boys going and doing all their things and all that. I don't know. Like, honestly, it's the easy pick to say just run it back and it's going to be the same.
Yeah.
It probably is going to happen. But I can't see Buffalo making it. Buffalo is just a cursed franchise. I can't see them doing it. I see Cleveland.
So you're gonna say Buffalo's cursed, but you're picking the Browns.
Hold out here. I didn't finish my sentence. Cleveland is definitely a cursed franchise, and this is the next level to them. So they've been stagnant at their level of curseness for a long time now. So now they need to get to the Super Bowl and have their hearts ripped out here.
Okay,
Some sort of ridiculous Cleveland-esque fashion. So that's what I'm going to say is going to happen. And I just don't want to pick Tampa Bay again, so that's why I went with Green Bay. I think the NFC West teams are all just going to beat the shit out of each other all season long, and they're going to be too banged up. Someone's going to have some sort of key injury at the wrong time in the playoffs, and it's going to cost them. And so that's why avoid the NFC South, avoid the NFC West, pick the NFC North, because God knows nothing's coming out of the NFC East that's going on Super Bowl run there. That was my rationale for how I ended up where I was.
Yeah. You know what? I agree with you. It's an easy pick to just say run it back, but what Tampa Bay was able to do is unprecedented this offseason, keeping their entire starting core together, plus adding pieces and keeping a lot of their key free agents together. Not only that, but their whole coaching staff remained intact. You never see that with a Super Bowl winning staff ever. So I think just with all that, last year they won in year one of that system with most of these guys. Now they're together. There you go. Antonio Brown just got a touchdown, of course. But anyways, you look at what they're lined up to do this year with that much more confidence, with that much more, camaraderie in that locker room. I can't see Tampa Bay not being there again. And again, Kansas City, as long as Patrick Mahomes is there, they're always going to be competing for a Super Bowl. That guy's is such a special talent. And especially when you have generational talents in their own right, like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and, good for your fantasy football team.
Let's hope.
If they can show out. But, I really see Kansas City just, doing their thing and going back to a third straight Super Bowl. So it's easy, but I got to do it. I'm usually a risk taker. Not this time.
There you go. All right. Last question, and it's the most fun one. Who's going to be the worst team this year? Who's picking number one overall?
I mean, you and I both know who this is going to be. And it's a team that shares the same state as one of the teams playing tonight. And it's the poor old Houston Texans. I mean, what they did this offseason and what happened to them this offseason, I can't remember a worse offseason for a sports franchise. Honestly, I can't remember a worse offseason. You've got a new coach who is as blasé as you can get. You've got a new general manager who you tried to get a couple of times 2 years ago, couldn't get him. He comes over with as little fanfare as imaginable, and he's pretty much alienated all of the top players there already. They've released JJ Watt, who is the face of their franchise. The Deshaun Watson, issues are going on, which is casting a huge cloud over them. And not only that, but they're bringing in all these cast-offs from other teams that are well past their prime. Like Mark Ingram is their starting running back. They just signed Danny Amendola today to be their third receiver, even though he wasn't in camp with them at all. Like, they traded away Bradley Roby, who is probably their best cover corner. Like, they're literally doing everything they can to get the first overall pick next year. So if someone's just going to give it to you, just take it. That's easy. So if you're betting on who's going to be the worst franchise, the Houston Texans by far will be the worst franchise this season.
I think the Houston Texans are the worst franchise, but they're going to screw up being the worst franchise. And somehow
like Jacksonville.
Yeah. It was just like the Jets and Jacksonville there. Yeah. So I completely agree with you. It's an absolute gong show down there. Tough scene just in Houston these days in general. Like the Houston Rockets are a disaster. The Houston Texans are a disaster. The Houston Astros still have the cheating scandal looming over them. Like, oh boy, it's not pretty down there. I agree with you 100%. It's going to probably be the Texans. If I had to pick a runner-up of who, if we screw this up, who could sneak past us, I'm going to say the Detroit Lions could have a very long year in the Motor City. And one quick way to get past a quarterback in Jared Goff there is getting the number 1 overall pick and going out and drafting your own quarterback and building that way. So that's kind of what I see, but I would be shocked if it wasn't one of those two teams. But who knows? It could very well be the Philadelphia Eagles if things completely go off the rails for us here. We're either going to win the division or not. Like, there's no in between that I see.
Yeah. So here's my sleeper pick for worst team this year, and that's the New York Giants.
There you go.
They are my sleeper team for worst franchise, because Daniel Jones, he's not getting it done. Sorry, Giant fans, he's not getting it done. Your big free agent.
Giants fans, you need to convince of that. It's pretty unanimous at this point.
You know, we've talked about ACL injuries on our show several times and the timeline for recovery. And Saquon Barkley, even though people are saying he's 100%, he's not 100%, everybody. It takes 2 years to come back from an injury like that to be full 100%. Adrian Peterson is the only person who's ever done it, and he's a physical freak. I know that Saquon Barkley, they call him quads. He's built like an absolute, truck. He's not 100%. And when he's not at 100%, he can't do those magical things that he was able to do in college in his rookie year. So if that's your saving grace, I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. Your offensive line, it's not good. You don't have a good offensive line. They went out and they got Kenny Golladay. The receiving corps has got some decent talent. They drafted Kadarius Toney. That's all fine and good. But as we've seen in the Super Bowl last year, if you don't have time to throw to whatever receiver it is, they ain't going to catch the ball.
Bad things happen.
Bad things happen. So, again, and then their defense is going to be their saving grace. They've got a very, very good defense. I think a lot of people are looking at them as being the top defense in the NFL, but I think with how much they're going to be on the field, they're not going to be able to show everything that they can do. So that's my sleeper pick for the worst team this year is the New York Giants, but it would take a miracle for the Houston Texans to not land in that number 1 spot in the draft next year.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I would not be upset at all to see Giants fans have to suffer through an entire season of misery that way there. But then I would have to reverse side of the coin here, suffer through an entire offseason of hearing nothing but talk radio about the New York Giants and what they're going to do with the number 1 overall pick. So I don't know. Maybe if they sneak in at number 2, that'll end up being better. But
yeah.
Anyways, Kyle, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Tell the people where they can tune in and listen to you and the boys rant about all things sports.
Front Office Podcast presented by Dine Sports. So you can find us on any streaming platform, and you can follow us on our social media on Instagram at Front Office Podcast. I could give you our Twitter account, but I really don't go on Twitter that much. So just go to our Instagram page. We put up most of our content on there. And again, anyone who's looking to take advantage of some of our great sponsorships that we have at the Front Office Podcast. I mean, we have the Smoke Shack, BTP Smokehouse. You can use the promo code FOP10 at checkout for your online orders at the BTP Smokehouse location. And with Human 2.0, which is a fantastic fitness facility located here in Ottawa, anyone who's looking to take part in one of their world-renowned free trial classes, mention the podcast and you will get a second free trial class. So listen, enjoy, and share the wealth with our fantastic sponsors. And I'm really looking forward to taking advantage of the Dine Sports sponsorship with Fanatics and getting some free gear.
Yeah, go and check them out. Just make sure it's not on Twitter because it's just a shell corporation over there. It's where they move things that they don't want to get caught red-handed with.
Yeah, it's been taken over by rebels. So who knows what's going to be on there.
Amazing. All right. Well, thanks again for tuning in, folks. Check out the Front Office Podcast, the Dynasty League Podcast, or Dine Sports Podcast, all on the Dine Sports Podcast Network.